Welcome to Foundation. Today we're talking to one of my favorite guests, Jamie Oliver, who is an advocate for healthy food and a celebrity chef. He's a riot. Let's chat with him. Thanks for being on the show.
Pleasure.
I want to start at the very beginning, the day of your birth. Well, you probably don't remember that.
Can we start at conception?
Yeah, let's get into that. Tell me that story. Now, seriously though, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Essex, which is, in American translation, is a little bit like Jersey Shore. Mm-hmm. It's quite bling.
Lots of fake tanning going on out there.
Funnily enough, yes.
Really?
It's low unemployment, but quite aspirational people. Don't mind taking the mickey out of themselves and having a laugh. It's quite a colourful area of Britain. And it's nice. I mean, I grew up in a little village, and I lived in the local pub. And my dad, 40 years ago, was one of the early people to sort of start doing the gastropub thing. Mm-hmm. So, historically, the pub was just a drinking hole, and you'd have, scampi in a basket and some, chips and stuff like that. That was about it. But
so he owned a pub then?
Yeah.
Was that the family business?
Yeah.
Like, did your entire family work there?
Yeah, I lived there. I lived above there for 16 years of my life. And but since the earliest memories, 4 or 5 years old, there was always food. There's always local food, always whole animals, game, seafood on a Thursday and a Tuesday, all kind of like, all local staff, which means like not kind of like in posh restaurants in London or San Francisco where everyone kind of looks trendy and hipster and has the right, outfit or the right hair or,
It's a pub.
In the country, they're all shapes and sizes,
right.
From 90 years old to sort of like not even legal. Dad employed, I don't even know if he employed them. Like we had so many underage workers at the pub. And I was one of them. I started working in the pub about 8. So just like peeling vegetables, bottling up, which is replacing the bottles that you've kind of served. Mm-hmm. And then there's the bottle basket, which is taking the bottles and putting them in the crates that get picked up by the lorry, cleaning toilets and...
Did you hate that? Was that kind of like something where you...
No, I didn't.
Sometimes the family business can be like, I don't want to do what dad's doing. Like,
no,
that's
I just wanted money. I just because I just wanted to I was like super into Star Wars and Star Wars figures and I'm a proper boy, just love stuff.
Right.
And I really love the idea of being able to work to earn a couple of quid to then, in that day and age, didn't have the internet, but you had Freeman's catalogue.
Yeah.
So you'd have this big fat catalogue that Mum used to always have, and it used to have kind of like toys and
yeah, we had Sears catalogue out here. We'd look through it, see
just
the toys
like that.
You wanted.
So when I wasn't looking at the ladies' brassieres, which was
everybody did that.
A really important part of my childhood, it was kind of all the toys and the sort of drum kits and walkie-talkies and kind of that stuff.
And so did you then graduate from there to go into working in like the kitchen and actually preparing food? Or
I started then I went in the wash-up, which is just cleaning all the plates. And then sort of like before service starts, there's often a lot of prep. So peeling potatoes, carrots, veg, picking herbs, just basically being kind of a chef's bitch, which was cool. I was really excited about that because like I knew that sort of in the kitchen, Dad always had a kind of classic French regimental kitchen, which was a veg department, a fish department, a meat department, prep, desserts.
Was he the chef or did he hire chefs?
He was early days, and then he employed a head chef so he could concentrate on running the business out the front of the house. But he is a chef. But I knew all the fun was in the kitchen, man. I knew really young that the dirty jokes and all the banter and kind of like, that sort of British sense of humour of just taking the mickey out of each other constantly. Mm-hmm. I knew I wanted to be there. About between 8 and 10, I ended up going in the kitchen. And I kind of loved it because it was like, that kind of sensation you get, like building things and completing things.
Sure.
A plate is like that. So to start preparing things and peeling them and, blanching them and dressing them and getting them ready to a point and then a customer comes in and orders it, and then you kind of like roast it up, and then you put it together with something else, and there's a sauce or a garnish, and you kind of build this plate. It was kind of like Lego for like older kids. So I love the concept of building things, but then service, you know, when you got different checks coming in, it was like, it reminds me of Tetris.
Yeah.
You know, as old as that game is, it's still quite fulfilling. So a 4, a 3, a wonky one, an L-shaped one, you know what I mean? And like just having checks coming in.
That's got to be really stressful.
It can be it's stressful if you're not organized. If you're not set up for service, it's the worst 2 hours of your whole life.
Yeah, I hated it. I worked in a kitchen for a little bit.
Yeah, and you can cry. Grown men cry. So that was kind of pretty painful. But if you're organized and you do a great service and you know every dish has been beautifully done and seasoned gorgeous, God, that's just the best feeling in the world, and I loved it. So I kind of, by the time I was 16, I was pretty well versed in the kitchen. I'd done the rounds twice.
So what made you break away from that? Why not just stay, run the family business? Like, that's where you could be today, still doing the same thing?
Yeah.
Like, what was it that kind of pulled you out?
It's a good one, really, because like, I sort of had two sort of energies coming my way. Like, I think when you come from a little village and you run a successful family business, there is an instinctive pressure to sort of crack on with the family business and just sort of like run the family business. At the same time, we were an hour from London, and I hadn't been anywhere. I really hadn't been anywhere, you know, like it's amazing how far you can't go. I mean, it's just, I hadn't been anywhere, then I had to go. So when I was sort of 16, I left school, did really badly at school, but I had a great laugh. But I went to college in London, and I got into the best college, catering college in the country. It's like 400 years old, Westminster College.
How did you pull that off doing bad in school?
Why was I bad in school?
No, how did you get into college having kind of left school early, and then was that hard to pull off?
Do you know what? It's kind of like, I don't know how it translates, but in the catering industry, if someone says they're good, anything can happen. Like bits of paper, I could have got all straight A's and not got on that course. So it's like I went from my trial. You know, I could cook by then, you know, pretty well for a kid, you know. So I knew the drill, I knew the system, I knew the departments, I knew the basics. To be honest, mate, I was well ahead of myself. And to be honest, I needed that because I had to concentrate on the theory, which I'd always historically been bad at. So I'd just done a day, we call it a stage. You do a day working in their kitchens and you do a bunch of sort of silly questions and stuff. And I was straight in. So that was good. And it was Westminster College. It sounds nice. It sounds grand. It was a 2-hour trip door to door from the village I came
So you were still going back to the village?
Yeah, because I was still a baby, really. Because my mum was really great and she was a great cook. And she really looked after me.
So did you drive yourself out there every single day?
No, she drove. I didn't drive at that age. In England, you can't drive till you're 17. So like, she'd drive me to the train station at like 6 in the morning, and then I'd get the train in, and then I'd get the tube to Victoria, and then walk to college, and then you'd finish like 5, 6 o'clock, and then come back. But it was amazing, and it was exciting, and it kind of felt like I was just starting to see a world that country bumpkins like me had never seen before. And it was also quite a funny time because all of my mates, and I had lots, I mean, I'm still friends with 80% of my school year, you know, and we were a tight bunch, but all of my mates thought that being a chef was just the stupidest, crappiest sort of job, really. You know, you just get loads, you just be called a puff. You know, just you get called terrible things just for wanting to be a chef. And it's quite ironic now because I know I'm biased, but cooking is just the most incredible job, the most incredible industry that can diversify in so many ways. I mean, cooking's like technology. I mean, it touches everything. So I couldn't be prouder of my industry, but my friends that were taking the piss out of me all wanted to be city boys and traders and estate agents, which, to be honest, I'm not that keen on those people now. So they kind of became my nightmare, and then cooking kind of went through a renaissance, you know, cooking in those days was for girls, and I went to an all-boys school. They would never teach cooking, no way. So still quite sexist in a way.
So how did you make the transition from just something that you were really passionate about, you went to school for, to, you know, typically at that point someone goes and they work at another restaurant and they just keep working and eventually, you know, become a head chef or whatever it may be. How did you decide and how did you make the leap from, I want to do more, I want to do something bigger, I want to get on television, I want to write books?
Oh, none of that. I know, because I think because I had it pretty sewn up. Okay, so I went to college and it was like a fast track, new friends from all religions, all backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, like partying, clubbing, ladies were exciting.
Probably a lot more ladies out there than there were in your hometown.
I didn't get any, but there were just more around.
They were there.
There weren't many in the village. Lots of sheep, but you know, it was a very exciting time. But the great thing for me was because I had always been so bad at the theoretical part. I mean, without sounding sort of, it will sound pretty. I was breezing through the practical. It was not even 20% effort for me, I have to say. Because I just done it for 5 years, you know, but not just done it theoretically, done it for customers. So I could really focus on the food science and the French and just kind of the more, you know, project building and stuff like that.
Did you feel gifted in that area? Did you feel like that was your calling? Like that was so easy for you and other people struggled at that? Or
no,
was it practice or was it just something that came naturally?
It was just practice, mate. You know what I mean? It's just kind of if you get up and run a mile to school every day, then running a mile to school is just nothing. It's like,
right.
It's just, it was, but I did love it. And I'd seen quite a bit, but it was the tip of the iceberg. So the short of college was I did really, really well, which was kind of a new thing for me. And then I got my first job in London working for a famous Italian chef who was really famous for foraging mushrooms and being so that whole foraging world was really exciting. So I moved to London, aged 18, and moved in with my girlfriend, and then started on a journey of sort of just inspirational restaurants, really. But in the back of my mind, I think the plan between me and my dad was he had a bit of money saved. I would go and to London, learn skills, give it 4 or 5 years, then I would come up, I'd put my savings and his savings together, we'd get a bank loan and we'd get a little pub in the country, maybe 65 covers, and kind of do my version of what Dad did. And that was honestly, that was the total plan. Signed, sealed, delivered. That was it. And I was really excited for it. And, you know, and the concept of money, I mean, when you become a chef, you do not become a chef to be rich. You don't.
No, I know.
There's no money until you're a head chef.
Right. And even then, half the chefs fail.
No, I mean, honestly, there's no one in technology that makes less money. I mean, even head chefs compared to technology, it's nothing. So you don't do it for money. So you do it because you love it or because you're lost. So I was just very, very happy with the dream of a pub in the country, probably back home near Dad, but not too close so I'd take his customers, you know. Yeah. He was pretty clear about that. But then it all kind of changed one day, really. And then there was a new trajectory. And
what was that moment?
Well, someone called in sick to work on a Saturday night, and that was my day off. And on my days off when I worked in London, I'd often do private dinners to get a bit of extra cash because, you know, London's expensive. And Jules is like, no, don't go. But because I'd grown up in the family business, I had to go no matter what. It's a team. You can't let the team go down. When you're one man down on a Saturday night, 240 booked, you know, you just have to. So I went in that night, and because someone had been sick, I was in an hour late, so I had to push. And there's this bloody film crew there, and documentary film crew. And to be honest, they're in my way. They're right in my way. Sound men, cameras, asking loads of bloody questions. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just was focused on getting the job done. But now I look back, I know why this was a kind of sort of moment.
What was your attitude towards them? Was it like something?
Get out of my way.
Right.
So they'd ask me a question, I'd answer it really simply,
Right.
And then I'd kind of push them out of the way and kind of go past and put the plate on the pass and be getting on with, because I had checks coming in, and there was hardly any room in the kitchen. But now I make TV, now I produce TV, I know exactly what happened. My two bosses at the time, who were two of the most inspirational, the Alice Waters of Britain, really, Rose Gray and Ruth Rogers. Incredible cooks, amazing thinkers, completely untrained and radical. They had done brilliant recipes in the filming for the show, but now I look back, they're quite hard recipes to film, and they're quite long, and they're quite hard to cut. So it's a sort of TV maker's nightmare. So they just needed some reportage, some energy, some sort of storytelling
Some sound
moments.
bites, something that.
But what they got from me was just like little 30-second bombs that were actually recipes. So it was just like, so they just kept putting me they kept putting me in the cut.
What year was this?
94.
So there was no Food Network television.
No.
Nothing was being done on TV with food at the time.
Everyone on TV was basically over 50.
And like selling like a machine or something.
Michelin stars, Chef Whites, really bad studios, kind of locked off shots, dollies. So it was a really kind of
super old school.
Yeah. Crap theme tunes. And there was one kind of guru, Keith Floyd, that was incredible. Sadly, I never got to meet him, but
so who saw this? Somebody must have saw this tape and said, "This guy's awesome."
No, they broadcast it. It went out. It went out as a documentary, but I never knew what night it went out, and I didn't know I was in the final cut. And then the next day when I came to work, everyone was like, "You were on the show last night. You were on the show last night." And then the phone calls started coming from production companies and the BBC. And I think it was Granada, which was a department of ITV, which is sort of, one of the network channels, and producers, and it went bonkers. And
how did you make that call though? Like I think that there's this tough decision that you probably had to make at the time. Like, do you focus on the family business and do you go on the standard road or the same plan, or do you take this massive risk and leave everything and go focus on television?
Because there was nothing on TV that inspired me in cooking at that time, and because I was proper, 20 years old, quite good at a small amount of things, and overly cocky as 20-year-olds are. I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, you do it my way or nothing, which was a really important thing, because I was kind of quite single-minded about how we would film, how that we'd use music from my record collection, that I'd be in my own civvy clothes. I didn't want to cook in a studio or cook in my own home. And I wrote it down on a little bit of paper, and on that bit of paper it sort of said stripping down restaurant food to its bare essentials, and that's where the Naked Chef kind of thing came in, strip in and bare. And the Naked Chef was born, and it went ballistic. Perfect time, perfect name. To have a little kid passionate about cooking. I was like a little hyperactive, annoying kid that was just like mental about food.
Did you ever do any media training? Did you ever do
They tried to, but I was not really trainable. Yeah. I was kind of like, I was pretty honest and just said, I got myself in a few little bits of trouble here and there, opening my mouth. But I think the love and the passion came through, and I think, ultimately...
Do you think that's what it's about for video? When you look at what's being done on YouTube and everything else, it's about the love and the passion.
I think you can get away with murder if you've got a quirk, or if you're kind of single-minded. There's loads of crap stuff that's single-minded, and it does well because it's single-minded. But I think, regardless of all the clever or weird bits and pieces about things at work, I think good old-fashioned quality, values and authenticity and passion, just drip with passion. I think you can't mess with that. That's the treacle, that's the real deal. And I think looking back, to be so young and so excited about food was quite rare, or seemingly it hadn't really been expressed on British TV before, but then it was on 80 countries like within a couple of years. So clearly it was like not just Britain. So it was if you think about it, there's no American talent that travels outside of America, maybe Canada. So, we're on 240 broadcasters on around 80 to 110 countries, depending on the job I do.
That's crazy.
It is ridiculous, and yeah, I still can't quite fathom what happened.
How did you scale that? Like, it seems to me like when you start to become popular, obviously everyone's beating down your door. Like, people want to take advantage of you. You'd never done television before. You've probably never looked at a TV contract ever in your life. Like, as someone that's that young, how do you not really fuck up? Like, and really,
You do. I think there's a mixture of emotions. First of all, there's the subject of money. I'd never really had any money. And even when we were living in London, there was like hardly any left every week when we paid the bills and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'd written the Naked Chef cookbook, which, by the way, nearly never happened. It was just recipes on bits of paper in a bin bag that was under the stairs that weren't there when I went to get it. I thought my wife loves a clean, so I thought she'd thrown it away. But this book, we sold like 2 million of those books pretty quick. Mm-hmm. So there was that bit to deal with, which of course sounds like a good problem to deal with, which it was. But I was a baby, and I was and my dad was so old-fashioned about money and working, and had never earned an easy quid. That was a bit weird. And then press, and it's a really interesting thing on press. Like, looking back, and I think I'm right. Looking back, I had a kind of easy for 2-3 years with the press, because I was the excuse to slag off other people. So it wasn't anything about me. I wasn't saying anything about other people, but the press had so many problems with the historical broadcasters, mm-hmm. like other chefs, for being old-fashioned or fuddy-duddy or patronising or inaccessible. They would use me as the conversation starter to slag them off.
They want to pit you against other people.
And that did two things. That made them hate me pretty quick, because I was like golden boy. But also it made the press was giving me an easy time. Mm-hmm. So that was all good for the first 3 years, because it was a bit like being in one direction. You go to a book signing, there'd be like 1,600 people there, and it would be crazy. But after about 3 years, everything in England and everywhere always, it always changes. And pretty soon, I was getting roasted like any of the others and trying to learn the system. And, what is the system? I think ultimately I've always just thought, never lie to the press. And then I think after about 10, 15 years, the press, whether they like me or not, or certain people like me or not, I think mm-hmm. if you haven't lied for 15 years, you kind of generally have an understanding. But it was tough. I made some wrong decisions. I maybe did a few jobs that were a bit tacky and I shouldn't have done, but maybe the idea was great, or it was, some money for a few hours work, and to my head it felt like the right thing to do, but probably wasn't. Mm-hmm. So I think learning how to say no was a priority.
It's funny that you say that. We had the guy that created, Tony Fadell, that created the iPod on our show, and he said that one of the biggest things he ever learned was learning to say no. It's a really important life lesson for him as well.
Big time.
I'm curious, at this point in the stage of your career, very successful, sold a bunch of books, obviously made some money. You could kind of if you wanted to, you could kind of just, go chill and have a little garden and hang out with your wife and have a good old time. Like, why then go and really start to shake things up when you go in after fast food and after, dirty water, and why take on, they're really noble, awesome things that you're doing, but what in you said, I have to go out and disrupt things even further?
I'm not saying I haven't changed slightly now, but at that moment in time, at 23, 24, I had a house paid for. I had over £1 million in the bank. I was really passionate and excited, but I was like a fucking idiot, like any other 23-year-old. I was just working out what this was all about. I learned really quickly that my boss was not a broadcaster or a brand. The boss was the public. But then I learned pretty quickly it wasn't British public. It was all of the public. Mm-hmm. And that was a really, really powerful feeling that I got that you'd get by doing book signings. And even 14 years ago, I'd come to San Francisco and I'd be there for 4 hours at Sur La Table. They'd have bands playing. There'd be over 1,000 people queuing.
Crazy.
You know, and that was 14 years ago. That was 15 years ago from now. So, and you know, there'd be parts of America where they would not know you or not care, but of course Chicago, New York, LA, San Fran, the big food hubs at the time were into it. But I started to realize that food was a very powerful thing personally in the family, but also I started to see that a restaurant could change a street, and that, you know, that there's something about people in the food industry, like good. There's two things that I can promise you are true, right? If you ever taste or eat a product that has values, that's done properly, that's delicious, that person, that family will be golden. They will be amazing people, make amazing food. If you ever meet someone that makes, you know, owns or propagates or makes soulless shit, they're always complete assholes that don't care. And I know it's a broad statement, but it's for 15, 16 years I've never seen, you know, you go down a farmer's market and you feel just goodness and you tap into these people. So I started realizing that there was a lot more to this cooking game. And the truth is, because I was young and stupid and cocky and I had some money in the bank, looking back, I realized that was an incredibly dangerous cocktail.
You could get sued into oblivion for
for starters, often when that happens, you end up with loads of crap up your nose or getting into trouble. And, you know, there's rock stars and people that have kind of told that story. And I've never been into that. So what I decided to do was create a restaurant called 15 that took unemployed kids, homeless kids from prison, and create a restaurant that was a legit top-end restaurant that all the profits would train those kids. And we made a documentary about it. And the documentary changed everything in British sort of, the stuff, you know, about kids and that sort of, that genre of sort of observational documentary. They loved it. It was like rated like through the roof, got people talking at work the next day, became political. Because it was about, if you give an opportunity to a child or a teenager that's been in jail for a year for thieving or drugs or fraud or GBH, you know, if you give them an opportunity, will they take it? If you give them a golden opportunity, you know, will they recognize it and take it? And of course it was both. Some of these young people took it and some of them didn't. And that was the interesting bit. Why?
Yeah.
Who, why? How do you deal with the kids at the bottom of the barrel? You know, how do you break the cycle of years of, you know, family members being in jail and stuff? And this is a problem in America and England equal.
Sure,
and actually nowhere in the world there's not a government in the world that deals with it brilliantly. We all deal with it badly. So it was a really thought-provoking series. But for me personally, let's be really honest, I didn't do it because I was a really nice, kind person. You know, I did it because I was a young, romantic, cocky kid with the idea. You know, I always say I wanted to do it and I could do it, so I did do it. And no one was going to stop me. My dad told me not to do it. He really didn't believe it. He hated the idea. He said, you can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. You know, basically saying, you know, you know, if you fuck, that's it. You know, don't mess with it. It's done. And I deeply disagreed. So
there was a little bit of rebellion there, like people telling you couldn't do it, or
it was uncomfortable because the thing is because I was wild in the sense of just doing it like single-mindedly. There was about 3 weeks when officially I was bankrupt, but we hadn't quite. Luckily, I got another royalty check from a book, which just saved my ass at the last minute. So, I mean, it was exciting, it was wild, it was romantic, it was risky, it was stupid. And it was the best thing I ever did. And to this day, it keeps me honest. And to this day, it's the most dangerous thing that I do, and involves loads of time and care and gets me into trouble.
Yeah, I mean, does that freak you out? It must, in that, like, you know, you go and do a segment on, you know, a fast food chain. They have very deep pockets. I mean, they could just go after you and put you right back in the place where you came from, or at least try to.
Well,
Does that still freak you out?
Well, that was I guess that was kind of that area of. I hadn't learned about that yet. Mm-hmm. I wasn't ever talking about that yet. Mm-hmm. I think I was just growing up, and in some respects seeing the transformation of hard to reach young people, and seeing that if you gave love, care, and attention, and second chances, and mentoring, and to be mentored and to be a mentoree. It was reciprocal. Mm-hmm. Like that was a massive learning for me, and I had this vision of completing a circle, and I always talked about it, the completion of the circle. And actually, 3 years ago, the circle kind of completed, because one of my first year students was the head chef at the Spotted Pig in New York. This is an English kid, by the way.
Yeah, I know the Spotted Pig.
Yeah. And they got a Michelin star, and he was the head chef with April when they got that star.
That's amazing.
So for me, that was the completion of the story,
Yeah.
because the completion of the story basically means when your students get better than you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's probably about...
That's like a ninja or samurai thing or something like that.
Well, there's about 13 of them now that are better than me.
Yeah.
And they're all having their moment now, and that's sort of 13 years down the road. But I was very clear that was sort of what I was searching for.
So do you have all these other little circles going on at the same time? You talk about the completion of the circle. I mean, you're doing this on so many different fronts, whether it's clean drinking water.
Well, then that took me, because 15 by default was a social documentary. It was a piece of work. And because it had a life after the TV show. Everyone thinks that TV is really easy. And like, look, every campaign I've ever done lives in people in my world and my office to this day. Mm-hmm. So you can't make up stuff and go. It's a very Hollywood thing to do, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Like create a scenario and then cut.
Yeah,
and then
lights go off, everyone dissolves.
So
yeah.
From that, I started getting political. So you'd start saying something about something that was wrong, and people would write about it, and then they'd debate it, and then they'd agree, and then they'd be quoting you on a show. Yeah. So that then started this thing, and then
you're like the Banksy of the food world, kind of.
He's much more mysterious and cool, but I think what I was about 5 years in then to my relationship with the public, global public, and the problems in Britain were the same as the countries that I was broadcasting in internationally. So when we did the school dinners campaign, that was the kind of, from a campaigning, sustainable, ethical, righteous, political point of view, that's where that all began, because it was about our kids, mm-hmm. and it was about government, and it was about how can you talk about anything else when you can't feed your kids right at school. And our kids, like the American kids and many other Western kids, were getting really ill really quick from fixable, self-inflicted diet-related issues. So this school dinners campaign was mental in the sense that, you know, if you think about it, like, I was known and quoted, but we had no sway in government at that point. But after we broadcast 4 one-hour documentaries, and that resulted in standards created for food in schools for kids, and debate across the whole of how we look after that sort of area, and $1 billion injected into the system that hadn't been invested in for 40 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this was big time, you know, and I wasn't quite ready for that either.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think it's about being righteous or training or wanting or dreaming. Mm-hmm. It's just like one thing leads on to another, and then if you really care about something, generally that thing has lots of different sides, and if you follow it, and if you have an audience, mm-hmm. and if people trust you, and if you don't bloody lie, mm-hmm. Then I think they can be there for all those emotions, for the laughter, for the funny bits, you know, for the information bits, and for the really serious sort of darker bits and the political bits. So I think, your audience can have different gears, really.
I want to talk to you a little bit, speaking of your audience and being true to them and embracing them. You're really awesome on social media.
You reckon?
You use the Instagrams, the Twitter.
I love Instagram.
How those tools helped you over the last few years? Do you consider those like a big?
Yeah,
I mean, you use YouTube. Obviously, you have your own channel there.
Yeah, people think we're really good at it, and I think that's mainly because people in my area aren't that good at it. But I don't think we're that. I think we're still learning. But I love it. I mean, I think the most important platform for me is Instagram, and.
You try to do like a post a day, 2 posts a day, like what?
Well, I try and structure one in that I plan at the start of the month, and one of my dudes back home put it up. So we do a recipe of the day, but I post everything else myself, and I'll probably do 1 to 4 a day, depending on what's going on. I might not do anything for 2 days, but I try and do it regularly because they're a really inspirational audience, and there's something about like words and pictures where you can really bring out the best in people. It's also it's such a simple thing, but it's a really creative hub for me. Like my life is more interesting because of Instagram. I get inspired because of Instagram. I meet new friends because of Instagram. I mean, seriously, like I hook up with people in countries and for some reason it feels fine and safe. And even as a celebrity, whatever you want to call it, like I don't feel like it's weird or vulnerable. Like you get to know people.
Yeah.
You can really find out a lot about people just through pictures.
Yeah, just following them. Yeah, I've done that to some random people. Just follow them, and
you just kind of know if they're roughly all right.
Sure.
And often they're better.
It's weird,
than
isn't
that.
it? You can tell that through pictures.
I just think because you're not, when you see a picture, it's not just their face or what they're wearing. It is the kind of stuff in the background. It's the pictures. It's the type of pictures. It's, do they love their kids? Do they, it's all that kind of subliminal real stuff. And then you go, I like you. But like Twitter's the kind of opposite. I mean, like we're kind of I guess we've kind of got big numbers on Twitter in some respects, but and we use it and we like it, but it's spiky and spiteful and useful, but it's a totally different relationship.
There's less emotion, I think, that comes through.
And then Facebook is much deeper relationship and a little bit more grown up. But then even Snapchat I've been starting to use now, which is a much younger platform, and it's sort of just daft things really. But like that fascinates me because it's quite immediate. Because you can, like, if you're going to turn up somewhere or do an event, or if you're going to post something, a blog or something on YouTube, or you can just send them over quite quickly, and it's sort of quite immediate. So, I mean, YouTube's a big one, and that's been because YouTube's kind of been sort of sent because the TV industry's been kind of imploding. Yeah. And people are consuming media in such diverse ways now. I kind of think like, technology seems to be, there's so many I'm a chef, right? So, and chef's quite technical. So I'd rather be a food lover and a cook than a chef in some respects, If you look at all the people that have really changed my life, they're all women to start off with. And it's much more maternal, much more sensory, And I think interesting thing about technology is often these genius people make these incredible things. But there's no point in having these incredible things if there's no content and soul to put on the bastard things, So there's no point in having technology with layers if you haven't got content with layers. Sure. And there's no point in organising this stuff if you haven't organised that stuff. So I think as far as my industry is concerned, in a kind of, don't get me wrong, there's brilliant bloggers doing great things, and there's like the artisanal farmers market equivalent to food content is doing really, really well. But kind of the chunk of recipes online is crap. Yeah. Really quality bad, trustability bad. Yeah, the websites look are bad too. They're not, and all the people like. Can you fix that? Can you like? I want to fix that. I want to fix that. I mean, awesome. I'd like to dedicate the rest of my career to being involved in, and how you either technically fix that, or you don't always have to technically fix a solution, do you? Like if something's prolific and popular, if the look and feel and options and the fact that it kind of is useful and gratifies people, that can subliminally become the standard. That, for me, that's what I want. I want, like, if I can track back, I think now I'm sort of I'm 40 this year. I've got 4 kids. I'm looking at life a bit different. I don't want anything more. You know, I'm really complete in so many ways. But from a food point of view and from just like feeling that through digital technology and through a relationship with a global audience, a deep, meaningful relationship based on sort of trust and having fun and the nicer things in life. Like, I do think that this generation of people and thought provokers do have the capacity to fix all the fuck ups from the greedy motherfuckers of the last 50 years. We've got a broken food system. You know, is it really okay? And is it really possible for companies that really produce shit and compromise farmers and make bad products and advertise to our kids to grow exponentially every year, like for like, year on year? And even if they go into new territories and start ruining other people's territories, like, you know, these companies are doing in Asia, Africa, and so I really think that humans are pretty simple. I think, like, we like good things, we like to have fun, we want our families to be safe, we want to cook good food. Good food makes you live longer and happier,
and age better too.
And most importantly, regardless of race, religion, or anything, like, if you give people good, clear information, they make good, clear choices. The problem is, like, that. I mean, my thing at the moment is food truth. You know, the lies around food. I mean, this country, no offense, like, America is just, it's not even a joke. It's like, it's how can you get away with, like, some of the legislation that protects the wrong people, you know? So, you know, even like I said the other day, you know, why is it that I'm in California campaigning for clean water in schools when 40% of schools don't have clean, safe water? So, I mean, I think for me, the exciting thing is, like, how does this generation and technology and good information get some control back, really, I guess. Because often in food, especially with poverty and hunger, which is always the debate, you know, I haven't got money, I haven't got time. Listen, if you ain't got money, that's fine. We cook you good food. The best food on the planet has always come from the poorest communities. Fact. You know, if you haven't got time, that's fine. There's many, many recipes that can be done in 10, 15, 20, half an hour. It's all good. So really the kind of, the currency we're talking about is knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I cooked for the first time some brodo myself at home, and talk about, like, the tastiest thing ever. I don't know if you've seen these pop-ups. They're doing like broth pop-ups now, like serving it like coffee.
Everyone's. Do you know what I love about
like San Francisco, the pop-ups?
Well, no, just modern day chefs.
Yeah.
It's like, and pop-ups, and I love it all. Don't get me wrong. It's just everything's broths now.
Yeah.
In England too.
Yeah.
Broths,
but,
ramen.
I mean, how much does that cost? Like, to your point though, to make a cup of broth, and it's flavorful,
it's the most
it's
nutrient-dense food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's the food that our ancestors sort of thrived on. I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, a good broth makes you feel good.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
you can tell it's good
lots
for you,
of junk food makes you ill.
Yeah.
But it kind of, don't get me wrong, like, my life's complicated. And I'm deeply unsatisfied with my, like, I don't feel like I feel like I'm kind of getting there in the longest, most ziggy-zaggy way.
Yeah. You know, I'm curious in the ziggy-zaggy way, like, what's the next 2, 3, 5 years look like for you? I mean, you just launched a new app.
Yeah.
That's new news. That was like, like 3 days ago or something?
Yeah, UApp. Yeah, that was kind of, I think, so what do you want to know? Like,
Tell me what you're working on. What are you excited about?
Okay, what I'm trying to do at the moment, and I've never really this is something I haven't done in my career yet. All I've done is work hard, invest in people, invest in businesses, and sort of get amongst it, which is great. But like, I kind of feel like right now is a moment to take stock. There's nothing worse than a busy fool. You know, I want to be a good dad. I want to try and be a good husband. You know, I want to grow businesses that really matter, and hopefully inspire other businesses to do things the right way. We want to focus on what we're really good at and where we really do something that really no one else in the world does as good as us. We don't want distraction. We don't want to do good things through luck anymore or goodwill. We want to get like medieval on its ass. And to do that, like I've never spent any time like getting to know people or meet people or actually make the effort to build relationships with like-minded people.
Is it because you're too busy in the past?
Yeah.
I'm the exact same way. I bounce around so much, and you know people in a really kind of lightweight, like, hey, it's good to see you.
And you kind of get to them eventually.
Yeah,
but the reality is life's too short for that. And I actually think like the stuff I'm passionate about, the food system, public health, and actually, you know, as far as laws and legislation in food's concerned, I don't really want much, but I do want clean water and a few basic stuff, you know, feeding kids right in school. So to kind of fix that, I am kind of really looking to, just sort of focus, kind of find some strategic partners.
Sounds like you just want to streamline everything.
I want to streamline everything. I want to get some money in the bank. I know that sounds like a really weird thing, not a weird thing to say, but like the stuff that's important to me, I can't do running all the, I need to look at stuff and say, right, I want to do that thing. I don't want to be conservative about, I've got to be grown up and, I want to invest in things that I know we can add value and like are unusual. So for that, we're looking at some strategic partners at the moment, not just cash, but like strategic partners that have platforms that can amplify what we're already quite good at. And like technology is a big part of it. And we're kind of just open-minded about how you plug and play brilliant content into systems that help people make better choices, help people have joyful experiences in food, but get it right most of the time, not all the time. I don't want to be boring. Like food's got to be loved and enjoyed, and I feel quite balanced about what food should be. But I think the general public, statistics of health tell us that we just need to just be shaded into a place where they can really enjoy food, not feel like they're not getting what they love, but make better choices, really. So that's sort of the focus. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get there. But I want to make more time to sort of meet people and also meet people that can, like, often I feel like I'm starting things and trying to add value. And I kind of want to meet some people where they can add value. Does that make any sort of sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It feels like, I mean, it's the feeling that I got when I walked into Google. You walk into Google and you meet brilliant people around you, and you're like, I can learn something from this person, versus you always having to do the teaching to someone else.
And do you know what? Like, and like, forgive me if I sound like a pretentious cock, because I'm going to sound like one. Like, I've now learned. Like, I'm not saying there's not plenty of people better than me at loads of things or whatever, but like where I am now, I'm sort of positioned in a really unique place. Like, trust is really the only thing that I have, and quite good engagement with communities across a lot of countries. And I actually think a lot of people don't have that. A lot of brands don't have that. A lot of technology doesn't have that. And I think with all the best will in the world, with all the best intention, I'm really worried about not getting the next 10 years right, because I think it's important, right? And I would love the dudes that own Twitter or Google or YouTube. I want to know how they feel. How are they going to They're running companies that are painting a very clear landscape about how this planet's going to work in the next however many years. They may not know it yet, but like everything is going to be through. I mean, like Google.
You've been down to Google.
Google, YouTube, and Facebook have they have the total capacity to fix the food system in the next 10 years, if they so wished.
Now, do they need to get into the content game at that point? Did they
Yes.
need to?
They need to get into everything game. They need to get into in the content game, making it easy, linking it up with basket, making it easy for people to get the right thing in like all the mistakes happen in the supermarket. All of them. It's not, you know, if you get it right in the supermarket or the basket, you can get it right at home. You know, all of the food poverty is not about money or time. It's about knowledge. It's knowledge. So how we get that knowledge to them and how we link up the digital and the visual and the sonic with the skin on skin, they're going to smash all that.
The thing I'm curious about is how you break like how do you compete with those marketing dollars? Like everywhere you go, every time you turn on the television, you see, you know, unzip a bag, pour it into your pan, heat it up, and you have an instant dinner. You know, and it says healthy everywhere.
Because
how do you fight that? I mean, there's those budgets are massive.
it's cultural. We have invented this.
Sure.
We've invented it. And the Americans are better at it than anyone else. You know, Santa Claus is red because of Coke. You know, it's a fallacy. It doesn't exist. We can smash it down as fast as it was created. The question is, are the people in control, who are those three companies in my mind, in my personal opinion, at the moment, you know, they're the ones that can inspire the public to make better choices, to vote better, look, if we thunderclap Food Truth on one of those platforms with any kind of brain or strategy, you know, we can make company. I'm not saying I want Coke to disappear. I'm not saying I want McDonald's to disappear. That would be daft, stupid, and in some respects not fair, and I would be childish. But what I am saying is, you know, the effect that I can make a little bit more powerful in Britain, you know, has definitely been part of the reason that McDonald's buys and sells and employs in kind of really interesting ways. 100% organic milk, free-range eggs, good pork, good beef. So why is it in America you can't have that?
Right.
It's just because the public expect more.
And so that's happening now in the UK?
Of course, and France.
Really?
Yes, it's cultural. This everything that we see around us is all look, I look out of your beautiful flat and I see San Francisco, right? And if your cameraman wants to do a cutaway, go. There's one bit of red there and it says Coca-Cola.
Right.
They're genius. But the thing is, it's kind of getting dark now. I mean, I know I'm on a rant and I will stop.
No, I love it. I feel
But
like sugar is the kind of battleground.
Can I tell you a fact? And I don't know if you know this, right? But since the Afghanistan and Iraqi war, right, 1,500 American servicemen have had their legs amputated through some kind of thing going on, bombs. In that same time, 70,000 people have had amputations in diabetes just in California. Guess what it is in the whole of America? 1.5 million Americans in that same time have had amputations through type 2 diabetes. So my question to you is, where's the war?
Right.
And I don't want to be. So I just think there's a kind of, we're in a brilliant time of balance now.
Right.
And technology is right in the middle of it.
Yeah. It feels like the word evil has been placed on guns, terrorists, all these other things that we can point to, but not to food. It's never been placed on, well, maybe partially hydrogenated oils was the first thing.
Look, hydrogenated fats.
That was the first thing we marked. Well, we marked butter. Now butter's good for you. That's part of the education problem, right?
Look. The truth and a statement that many junk food companies will say is no food is bad, with the exception of hydrogenated fats. Of course, but we still have alcoholics. We've still got lung cancer as one of the biggest killers. And balance when it comes to our children, and also the happiness and sort of the chain of events from bad health in our villages, towns, countries, cities, is so expensive and so depressing and so miserable that we do need balance. So if you're saying to me, what do I think about a sugar tax? I would say, well, I don't want one, but sadly in England and America, you need one, and we'll need one at some point because there's no money to pay for the problems. And we really, I'd love a sugar tax if I could ring fence that money and put it into school food education.
Sure.
I really believe that it's a child's human right to learn about food in school and where it comes from and how it affects their body. It's also their human right to get clean, safe water. And it's also their human right to get fed right 180 days of the year from the age of 4 to 18.
Maybe you have to start at that age and that level, for sure.
Definitely.
So, you've got a lot going on, it sounds like. This next chapter of your life is going to be a fascinating one. How can people get involved? Like, where can they go to help you out? There's a lot of technologists watching this right now. Like, what if someone's out there and says, I want to help him with coding work, I want to help him with a donation? Like, is there things or places that you go to or that you've set up that people can
I think it's just sort of being broad about it. I don't think I'm that hard to get hold of.
Just comment on your Instagram?
I'm pretty easy to get hold of. We'll put an email at the end of the video. I think, and it sounds like, follow me on Instagram, right? Because then, like, if you're interested in food and farming and that thing, there's rhythms to the year, and like if you're following me, then you'll kind of be aware of what's going on, and like it's about timing and moments and thinking and also alignment of stuff. So that's kind of creatively quite cool. I think we're trying to. Last year, for the third year last year, we did Food Revolution Day on May the 15th. And we got 1.4 billion impressions on Twitter alone in 24 hours.
Crazy.
We got over 1 million kids cooking the same recipe class. It was the world record, or the Guinness World Record for the biggest cooking class ever.
That's amazing.
In 24 hours. And we created nearly as much noise as the Oscars, and more noise than the Nike 2-week campaign on the World Cup. So I know that technology and the hunger for people to want to make a difference is out there. So we're doing it again this year, May the 15th. And we need help in the sense of anyone that can help us plug and play and amplify. We have ambassadors. We have 1,300 really bright, pumped up ambassadors in 110 countries around the world, and they're the ones that kind of have local stories that need to be, because the Food Revolution Day is about us as an umbrella allowing important small stories to become national stories. So it's about the debate.
Sure.
But then my challenge that I need to kind of work out this year, and I haven't got the answer yet, is how do we make that 1.4 billion impressions on Twitter plus everything else? How do we make that how do we kind of have 5% of that every day? And I think that's where the Facebooks and the Google dudes, with richness, how can we give back to those people like good ideas and helpful stuff? And in my head, Food Revolution Day is the kind of the nucleus of fixing the stuff that I'm worried about, that I actually think a lot of people are worried about. And so that's that really. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
It's been a
out of
pleasure,
your schedule. You're always obviously an inspiration to me and many others, so it was awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you. Cheers, dude.